Please go ahead, sir. We are live now.
Good evening, folks. Rajiv Talwar here.
Yeah, Himanshu, you are on mute. Please.
Thank you.
Thank you. A very good afternoon to everyone on this lovely Thursday afternoon, where the winter is setting up and same is the mood in the real estate sector, which is warming up gradually. I welcome you all to this seminar organized by SHM today on the topic cost optimization and flexibility in commercial real estate future directions. We have a panel of eminent and illustrious panelists today who will be talking about this sector. Yes, co-working, flexi-working, cost optimization, real estate, commercial real estate. These would be the words which we'll talk about. And today, we are proud that we have so many eminent panelists like Mr. Pradeep Agarwal, Dr. Niranjan Hiranandani, Mr. Rajiv Talwar, Mr. Kunal Walia, Mr. Amit Lal, Dr. Arun Mohan, Mr. Arvind Kumar. So friends, let's set the evening today with such a fabulous gathering. We see we have hundreds of participants who have already joined in this webinar today. To just start with, friends, commercial real estate. Commercial real estate is technically a higher form of reality. Yes, one of the most sought after form of reality in last 2 decades. Commercial real estate has been one of the most attractive investment in India over last 2 decades, and its economics are changing more rapidly than ever before. It includes everything from single storefront to a huge shopping center, retail space, office space, hotels and resorts, strip malls, bulk warehouses, restaurants, healthcares, etc., etc. And every such component of commercial reality has its own dynamics. Co-working has been a jargon for last decade, but now the new normal is flexi working, where people from the same company can have a flexi environment and design the real estate space according to their needs. In the recent times, there has been a thought process with respect to first managing the existing assets and second creation of newer ones. So in today's webinar, let's have a discussion over this. And to start with, please allow me to welcome Mr. Pradeep Agarwal, who is Chairman, National Council on Real Estate and Housing of SHM and Chairman, Signature Global India Private Limited, a big conglomerate in this country for affordable real estate housing. Mr. Pradeep Agarwal, I request you for your welcome address and setting up the theme for today's program. Sir.
Thank you, Himanshu. Good afternoon, Mr. Niranjan Hiranandani ji, our President, SHM, other panelists. Today's topic is cost optimization and flexibility in commercial real estate, the future direction. जिस तरह कोविड-19 ने बिजनेस के सेक्टर को हिट किया है, उससे सभी छोटे बड़े बिजनेस अपने काम करने के तरीकों को रीलुक कर रहे हैं या फिर श्रिंक कर रहे हैं। एक तरफ जहां वर्क फ्रॉम होम का जो कल्चर है वो बहुत ही अहम हो गया है, दूसरी तरफ ऑनलाइन शॉपिंग के जो ट्रेंड हैं वो भी बहुत लोग अपने बिजनेस की कंटिन्यूटी और सेफ्टी को लेकर भी परेशान हैं। और ये रोड टू रिकवरी बहुत आसान नहीं दिख रही। सबको कहीं ना कहीं डर है कि कहीं ये सिचुएशन हम पेंडेमिक से उभरने के बाद भी बनी रहे और जिससे जो नुकसान है वो और ज्यादा इंक्रीज हो जाए। कुछ रिपोर्ट से पता भी चल रहा है कि बहुत से लोग वर्क फ्रॉम होम के साथ कंफर्टेबल भी हुए हैं और कंटिन्यू भी रखना चाहते हैं। जैसा कि बहुत सारी कंपनीज ने अनाउंस भी किया है कि वो अगले 3 से 6 महीने तक इसको कंटिन्यू रखना चाहती हैं। लेकिन इस सिचुएशन को एक अलग नजरिए से भी देखना चाहिए, क्योंकि इस वजह से वर्क स्पेस में डिमांड तो कम होती है, लेकिन दूसरी तरफ जो रेजिडेंशियल यूनिट हैं उनकी तरफ डिमांड शिफ्ट भी होती है। कमर्शियल सेटअप अब कई नई तरीके अपना रहे हैं, जिसमें रिलोकेशन भी शामिल है और अपने नॉन कोर जो ऑपरेशंस को लोग हाई कॉस्ट मार्केट से लोअर कॉस्ट मार्केट में शिफ्ट कर रहे हैं। तो हमें भी इस चीज के लिए तैयार रहना चाहिए। एक रिपोर्ट के मुताबिक आईटी सेक्टर इंडिया की जो ऑफिस स्पेस मार्केट में सबसे बड़ा जो रोल है वो प्ले करता है। 2010 से लेकर 2019 तक के बीच की जो डिमांड में लगभग 44% का कंट्रीब्यूटर रहा है। ऐसे में कमर्शियल सेक्टर के लिए जो सबसे बड़ी चुनौती खड़ी हुई है, उससे लड़ने के लिए जरूरी है कि हम कुछ मीडियम और लॉन्ग टर्म स्ट्रेटेजी तैयार करें। सबसे ज्यादा जरूरी है कि कुछ वेलनेस मेजर अपनाए जाएं। एसी प्लांट्स के लिए कुछ ऐसे फिल्टर्स लगाए जाएं, कुछ कॉन्टेक्टलेस एंट्री बनाई जाए और एग्जिट बनाई जाए, पार्किंग और थोड़ा सा बेहतर बनाई जाए, कुछ इनोवेटिव कॉन्सेप्ट जैसे शॉर्ट टर्म लीजेस जो हैं वो कॉर्पोरेट में ज्यादा बेटर प्लान देने की कोशिश की जाए। और इन सब पर भी मुझे लगता है जो जिससे ऑफिस स्पेस यूज भी हो और थोड़ा सा उसे अफोर्डेबल भी बनाया जाए, तो इस पर भी सोचा जाना चाहिए। एक रिपोर्ट के अनुसार जो इंडिया की ऑफिस मार्केट है, इस क्वार्टर में लगभग 5.4 मिलियन स्क्वायर फीट का नेट जो ऑब्जर्वेशन है वो लगभग सितंबर का जो क्वार्टर रहा है उसमें एक्सपीरियंस किया है। तो देखा जाए तो इस क्वार्टर टू इसके मुकाबले में लगभग 64% के नियर अबाउट इंक्रीज हुआ है। इस ट्रेंड को देख के थोड़ा सा एनकरेजमेंट होता है। तो इस रिकवरी में 2 स्टेट्स बहुत ज्यादा मेजर रहे हैं, खास करके 2 सिटीज बेंगलुरु और हैदराबाद का नाम थोड़ा सा इसमें ज्यादा रहा है। इस रेंट भी जो है रिजनेबली स्टेबल है, नॉट कि बिफोर कोविड वाली सिचुएशन नहीं है, लेकिन फिर भी स्टेबल है। तो देखिए रातों रात तो कोई बदलाव होता नहीं, लेकिन मुझे लगता है कुछ नए इनोवेटिव आइडियाज डिफाइन करने पड़ेंगे, जिससे जो डिमांड कमर्शियल स्पेस में है वो लगातार बनती रहे। क्योंकि अल्टीमेट जो कमर्शियल रियल एस्टेट है वो हमारे इस रियल एस्टेट की भी रीढ़ है और इस देश में उसका बहुत बड़ा रोल है। तो इन्हीं बातों से मैं अपनी बात को खत्म करता हूं। नाउ ओवर टू हिमांशु जी। आपका म्यूट पे है हिमांशु।
थैंक यू प्रदीप जी। आपने बहुत अच्छी बात बोली, वेयर देयर इज अ रिस्क देयर इज एन अपॉर्चुनिटी, एंड ट्रस्ट मी, इफ यू टॉक कोरली अबाउट कमर्शियल रियल एस्टेट, people are actually afraid of this work from home culture where the residential developers are happy. But sir, trust me, over the period, a person cannot stay alone for a longer time. This is creating health problems, mental problems, and trust me, this is going to bounce back very soon. Friends, now it's the time. I call him the Bhishma Pitama of this real estate industry. Not only a seasoned developer, but a perfectionist in terms of quality, brilliance, and untiring zest for excellence. A man with profound knowledge, sharp business acumen, and an ambitious attitude. Let us now hear Dr. Niranjan Hiranandani, Honorable President of this esteemed chamber. Sir, your words are always words of wisdom. I will request you, sir, as an industrialist perspective, as a developer's perspective, when we talk about commercial reality, including the things like shopping malls, retail spaces, office spaces, warehousing. Sir, where do you see the future? And especially with respect to the existing projects where the cost is a big burden these days due to reduction in all such kind of activities in commercial side. And about the future development, because we see many cities, developed cities, further increasing millions and millions of square feet of real estate commercial construction, sir. Sir, just to share with you, sir, there has been a small research that there is a range of 4% to 18-20% of commercial reality across the country. Like, sir, the state of Maharashtra, out of 27,000 projects, 1285 of commercial, just 5%, sir. Whereas in a state like Gujarat, 16% projects being developed under RERA are commercial projects. So, sir, with this thought, I'll request you to please enlighten the gathering, sir. Please.
Thank you very much, Himanshu. Very kind of you for the generous introduction that you have done. Very grateful to you. I'm privileged to be here with Mr. Rajiv Talwar, the CEO of DLF Group. He is, of course, the largest investor into commercial real estate. So his direction and idea will absolutely give us the final word. Pradeep ji, बहुत अच्छे आपने बताया और सब nuances आपने बहुत अच्छी तरह से भी cover कर दी. We are looking forward to hear from Arvind Kumar of NTT Global, Simply Work, and of course Amit Lalji on the services by Sodexo, and of course Ravi Ahurja, who is our co-chairman in L&T, and Mr. Dr. Arun Mohan. So delighted to be on this common platform that we do. The growth of India in the last 2 decades, 3 decades, has been in the IT sector, where not only have we got commercial, but we have also been able to focus on employment generation for the educated people in the IT sector. So financial side, IT side, and global services have been actually the focal point on a large amount of commercial real estate, which has grown, of course, principally in Gurgaon, in Bangalore, in Hyderabad, in Mumbai, to some extent in Chennai, and of course, minor centers all over the country. So this has been the focal point of doing it. But that's not the only commercial real estate. This is the focal point where international investors are very keen to invest into this, because there is a stability and understanding which they come about. And there are investors and the people who are actually taking the space are also multinationals or Indian companies which are there dealing with multinational sales and this thing. So this has been an excitement in the last 2 or 3 decades. And I think a large number of developers have been able to encash it. But as correctly put in this program, cost optimization has become the answer of the day, because at every point of time, companies want to cost optimize. And as you have correctly put, both Pradeep ji ne bataya, and you have also mentioned over here, the work from home is a concept which has actually picked up. And in the last 7 months, a large number of companies have found that we don't need to bring everybody to the office. But you are right. This is not going to be a permanent situation, but some number of people will definitely continue to work from home. So this is one change which is going to happen. The second point, which is very important, and the requirement, as you asked about, what is the future of commercial real estate? The commercial real estate depends on 2 factors. One is the growth of GDP of the country, and number 2, the growth of the services sector in the country. So as GDP has fallen in this particular year, it is possible that commercial real estate in the year 2021 is going to be still muted. So you may not have an increase in demand for commercial real estate to the extent that we expected. And there is a muted demand in that part. And hence also cost optimization is going to be the answer of the day of those people who are capable of shifting into more efficient space, cost rationalization space, and they're able to work from remoter places. So that's the cost optimization. However, I do expect that by 21-22, the GDP will grow back to 5% positive growth in the system that is there. Though we are not able to assess 2021, it will be possible to say that 21-22 will see a positive growth. And at that point of time, commercial real estate demand will again spring back. However, the pace of demand is a challenge that we have to see, whether it is going to be inputs and whether other cities also will come into competition beside the cities which have already taken up a huge leadership role. However, there are other challenges that we see. For example, Delhi, for instance, is seeing an issue where you have air pollution of a very high order. Delhi region, the Gurgaon region, the NCR region is challenged over here. So there is a challenge and people must get into the situation over there so that at least the air pollution issues. And today, if you see the Mumbai Mirror paper of Mumbai, you see how the water pollution of the sea around it, where Mumbai Corporation has been fined 34 crores of rupees for throwing shit into the sea. So that's a very sad part of it. In spite of being the richest corporation in India and having 70,000 crores in the bank, they have not spent on sewage recycling plants of almost half the plants of Mumbai are not functioning at all. So I think that is a issues which we will have to see whether those cities are the ones which are going to be there. And the third part is, how are we going to efficiently run the infrastructure of these cities? So if you look at Bangalore and other cities, there is a huge traffic congestion which takes place, and travel time is also a challenge. So when we talk about cost optimization, we should also look at the second point of your statement, which is flexibility. We do find that a large number of companies are flexible and can move operations from one city to the other, depending on the cost motive and, of course, human manpower that they are able to do. So all these factors will come into being over a period of years with them. However, my personal opinion is that there is going to be a growth of commercial real estate over a period of years, definitely, in spite of the fact that there is a work from home. But the type of offices and the interiors and stuff is going to change radically, especially because of the situation that we have had at COVID times. I think the design of the offices, the congestion that you see in terms of IT spaces which have been built in the last couple of years, I think they will have to have more space in terms of it and providing necessarily the type of ventilation, re-putting in air into the offices in order to provide circulation, which today is done, whether as Pradeep ji suggested, there should be filters or it should be external air being pulled into the system in order to take care of whatever viruses may be there. I think all these factors will become very important. So how do we do cost optimization is going to be the question that has happened. Maharashtra has done a special move wherein they have now reduced stamp duty from 5% to 2% for the next 3 months and to 3% for the next 3 months up to March of 2021. Also, other charges are likely to be done. We have also represented for the purposes of GST that we should be allowed to have an input tax credit for GST in terms of leasing of commercial premises that should be done, as is available when we sell the premises as compared to input tax credit which come to these companies. So we need to look at that part of the cost optimization, and we have to benchmark ourselves not only through city to city, but country to country. And hence those cost optimization and getting human resources developed in order to meet the requirements of international companies becomes important over a period of years. These are my primary inputs, and I'm sure that our other speakers will be able to add their personal experiences in terms of how it is going to be there. Only my last word is, I have a large number of people, investors, who are coming to me and asking me, do you want us to co-invest with you for the commercial real estate. So obviously they understand our country better, or maybe they want to look at the opportunities in India and continue to invest into India, which is indicated to me that they are very bullish about Indian real estate and commercial real estate in India. Are we also equally bullish? That is a question I think should be answered by the panel by the time we finish our discussions. Thank you very much. Have a great day. Keep safe and be happy.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. So just a few more words. We have many developers joining this seminar today. Your guidance on retail malls, existing retail malls in terms of commercial reality and warehousing. How do you see warehousing developing as part of commercial real estate in this country, if possible?
So the warehousing facility, I will answer first. After GST has gone, a large amount of restructuring of warehousing and logistics is taking place. Because earlier we used to have godowns outside every city. Now that has changed completely because of the GST coming and all the barriers of cities happening. Warehousing will be, for the next couple of years, a large opportunity for people to really restructure into it. However, पहले जमाने का जो warehouses थे या गोडाउन थे वो बदलाव हो गया है और काफी उसमें परिवर्तन आया है. And we will now look at different types of warehousing and quality of warehousing which will be there, which will be useful not only for normal warehousing or godown, but also in order to conduct e-commerce. All the facilities that will be there, rapidity with which the secondary markets can also be catered for will become important. As far as retail is concerned, I think there is a huge challenge with e-commerce. People have now become habituated to order from home and will do it. But all over the world, even where e-commerce has developed tremendously, malls still continue to do. However, they will also have to become more efficient, more productive, and cost efficient, because the kind of discounts which are now available through the e-commerce route are not available at the retail malls. So I think retail malls, if they want to compete with e-commerce, will have to restructure the retail ideas and thoughts to scheme. So my belief is that there will be a huge consolidation of retail space that is going to take place, and a very big players like the Reliance and other people will come in and take this space with discount stores working all over the country. So yes, retail will grow, in fact, but it will grow in different ways. It will go through e-commerce, but it will also grow through retail space, because people do want to go out and shop and touch and feel to get this thing done. But it will not be entirely through that method. So there will be a portion, my belief is about 25-30% portion will be taken up by e-commerce, but 70% will still survive, because India is a large country and people are still used to going to the shopping street and purchasing things, going to the shopping lines to stores which is there, and also getting the touch and feel of that. So retail will survive, but consolidation shall take place.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. Your words technically give relief. They are full of hope, sir, for all the developers listening to you. Thank you so much. Friends, now is the time to hear to someone who is Chief Executive Officer of DLF Limited, a man who leads the word commercial in real estate. He leads that. An ex-Indian Administrative Services Officer, Master of Policy Making in crucial economic sectors. And Hiranand Nandani ji, you said that Delhi is polluted, but this man took the baton, and he's known for shifting all commercial vehicles in Delhi to CNG. An outstanding leader, visionary, a gentleman. let us all welcome Mr. Rajiv Talwar. Sir, you have recently given 7 lakh square feet, more than 7 lakh square feet in Chennai on commercial lease, and again a lakh square feet in Delhi recently. So, I mean, we all have seen the entire real estate or the commercial real estate booming under your mentorship. So, sir, your words of wisdom would be of great help, sir. Please.
Thank you very much, Basu. I'm sure the truth is much better known to Mr. Hiranandani and Pradeep and any other real estate baron or developer who's in the audience over here, that it's actually my wisdom is all borrowed wisdom from people like Dr. Hiranandani, Pradeep, and all the other developers, and also from another Rajiv. The chairman of DLF is Rajiv Singh, and I think he's 35 years, and his father and the family have contributed a lot. And I'm, as usual, a good bureaucrat learning from them. But 15 years is a long time, and I've learned a lot. And we normally feel, even within the DLF group, and I can tell you from top to bottom, that if it comes to being an industry representative and an industry intellectual, we still wait for the words of Niranjanji to give us sometimes wisdom, but more than that, practical wisdom. And for his words, we actually feel that he's just the man who says the right things to the right people, to the right quarters. And therefore, I think ASSOCHAM has done a great service to the nation by having him as the president. As you know, all over the country, our body of real estate developers also recognizes him as the president of NAREDCO, and he leads it single-handedly over there. And I can assure you that the government shares this view. He is therefore a part of the management of Unitech now. So there you can realize what kind of intellectual power and wisdom he brings by himself. We've all listened to him, and without repeating, I would only like to say that very often we think of the near future and the present. I think if you go by the record of this government in the last 6 years, whether it was the insolvency code, whether it was the labor codes, whether it is the farm laws, whether you name the area, whether it was J&K, I think absolutely futuristic changes have taken place under the leadership of Mr. Modi, and that is something which is quite a breakthrough right now. I think we've achieved some breakthrough reforms, and there is still room, because you're getting hints from the government, statements from the government that real estate, housing, construction, and I'm so glad that there will be Mr. Ahuja will be there from L&T, that these fields do need a lot of care and a lot of stimulus to provide all-round growth in GDP, which this nation wants to achieve. I would just remind everyone that in the last Independence Day address, which is, the 2019, not the 2021, the Prime Minister actually changed the economic narrative of this country. We've always been used to taking the narrative of poverty removal. He actually talked of prosperity. In a very guarded way, he mentioned a $5 trillion economy. Everyone is now discussing that, yes, pandemic will have an impact. How soon will we get back on track to achieve that $5 trillion GDP, and perhaps beyond that 10, 15, if India is to provide meaningful economic and social growth to every person in the population. Now to come back to our subject for today, I think everyone has said that bulk of FDI, which is coming into India, especially in this sector, is in the commercial real estate. Therefore, cost optimization and flexibility, not only for the planners of real estate, but policymakers also, the tax experts, the banking, the Federal Reserve Bank, all of them need to put their attention to it. Bulk of the nation's FDI has come into that, and we need to take cognizance that this is where the investors are investing. REITs have come in, and REITs have come in very successfully into India. Therefore, we also think that yes, as DLF, we were lucky enough that we did a private REIT with GIC, which is one of the largest sovereign funds. Therefore, there is plenty of room for investment in India. And that way, commercial real estate, cost optimization and flexibility is an area of the future. I think we need to have a futuristic outlook in India for any part of real estate, whether it's residential, retail, or more so commercial, because commercial seems to be the low-hanging fruit. Everyone is convinced that India's on the track of economic growth. Maybe tweaking of policies need to be done, but no one can deny that the national dream is how do we make India into a prosperous country. We've introduced GST, we've introduced faceless assessment, we've introduced various measures which go towards promoting a common national market. These now need to be buttressed. How? I think there are good signs right now, even during the pandemic, and I'm sure much more learned people on real estate than me would subscribe to it, that 96% of office space users have retained their premises. It's not a small number at all. Collections of rent have been 95% plus. It's a very big figure. That is needed to be taken care of. That while we do talk of work from home, on the other hand, social distancing makes a room for much larger offices with a smaller number of people. And what you quoted, Himanshuji, I would like to remind everyone that the deal which we have signed and the contract which we have taken up in Chennai is for a steel structure. It's for the largest office globally. That is what is news. It's not 7.7 lakh square feet, maybe expandable in future, more than that also. But it is the largest office globally of Stanchart. I think that is what makes news. There's another one close by. And in fact, I would give you two examples that where is the room for growth. Going ahead of Gurgaon a little bit, we've not only been able to make a sale of a new CBD coming in there, but a large office which has prompted that we need to provide much larger housing in that area, which is the South Peripheral Road. Besides this, take the example of airports. Look at what is happening in airports, the kind of commercial development which is being attempted in the Delhi airport. The first part was done of AeroCity, the second part has also been bid out. So you have a huge growth coming in there. Possibly the same thing will replicate itself in many of the airports which are now being privatized. So there is an opportunity over there. Similarly, we always thought of only cargo at seaports. There is a huge room for the Sagarmala project. There is a large amount of area available in those ports itself for commercial exploitation. In fact, we only concentrated on railway stations. I think there somebody pointed out very well in one of our seminars of the real estate industry and construction industry that very often you are told to invest first into upgradation of the railway station and the infrastructure over there, and only then attempt some commercialization. perhaps we need to be more flexible in our policies, that we need to have greater commercial exploitation going side by side with infrastructure development, because if you don't make money, then by the time you get over with the infrastructure development, you really may be out of money to make money from commercial development. Steel structures, I think those point out that there is a very big need to introduce technology, artificial intelligence, IT into commercial real estate. Whether it is screens, whether it is films which will generate electricity in future, whether it is management of offices and how will they become energy efficient by using artificial intelligence, by using conservation measures, how many times will we recycle water itself in commercial real estate? I think those are matters where technology will play a very major role in the coming years, and therefore there is room for a huge geometrical growth in commercial real estate. Pradeep ji and Mr. Pradeep Agrawal and Signature Group and a lot of other people are today following the need for affordable housing. Let's keep the best example of Bombay, where I'm sure Mr. Hiranandani will be able to guide everyone that how well do they utilize space? 300, 600 and maybe 1,000 or 1,500 square feet, which are used from the floor to the ceiling, provide a fillip to residential real estate, where our minister was given a target by the Prime Minister, Mr. Hardeep Puri, as the minister, was given a target which he will achieve 1 year in advance of making 1.12 crore homes affordable homes. I think the opportunity is for this nation to think that we need to make 5 to 6 crore homes all over the country. And how do you do that? I think we need to negate the cost of land next to zero, bring it down close to zero, whether it is for that affordable housing of 1,000 or 1,500 square feet, right from 300, but also for commercial. Because more homes and more urbanization, 600 million people coming to live in cities in the next 30 years will mean a large amount of office space to be built, an opportunity for everybody. I think we need an absolute new paradigm and a new set of rules for commercial real estate, and with them, the social structure that we are looking at. Please remember, even in the US, it's not that you're hundreds and hundreds of acres only for educational institutions. Many Ivy League institutions exist in cities like New York, like Philadelphia, like Chicago, and San Francisco. So therefore, we need now to adopt flexible real estate planning in this country. That educational institutions, medical institutions, there's no reason why, if we can have major hospitals in cities, why is there not an automatic permission given for a medical college next to it? Why do you have to go out and set up a university for that? Why is it needed to be licensed? After all, any hospital needs good doctors, and they would take care that only good doctors come out of those medical colleges. Why do we think negatively? I think we need to be much more positive in planning commercial real estate for cities, which will include educational institutions, which will include medical institutions, which will include markets and concepts. You know that there has been a major change after pandemic, that rent waivers have been given liberally in retail malls and stores. Because if anyone has suffered, they have suffered, jobs have suffered. I think we need to be much more flexible and see to that revival, especially in the face of a very good practice coming in, which is e-commerce. And as Niranjan ji rightly said, 25 to 30% of that pie would be taken up by e-commerce companies. But see the good side of it, that large e-commerce facilities and warehousing will come up at seaports, will come up in airports, will come up in towns and on the periphery of towns or maybe in the cities, because distribution needs to be spread all over tier 1, 2, 3, 4 cities. So a huge opportunity for that, not in competition, but in collaboration with the not only mom and pop stores, but also retail malls and retail markets, neighborhood markets or others. So I think there is a large number of room, and with that comes in that commercial real estate, like whether it is electricity, whether it is planning for gas-based systems, whether it is solar power systems, whether it is wind generation, but also recycling of water. I think those practices, films on the windows which will lead you to power generation, all these will come in with commercial real estate. And thereby infrastructure shortages which exist in India will be made up, because otherwise we think of traffic jams which you quoted in various metro cities in India. Why is it any different from Tokyo and New York? Are they not? It is said in New York that it is much easier to walk from one place to another in New York rather than take a car, because that would take a longer time. So I think we need to be changing in our thinking systems. The opportunity is perhaps the best in the world today. Any country we have followed, any country which is going up from a $3 trillion to a 10, 12, $15 trillion economy, what can be a better place to invest in that? In the world, this is perhaps the best place. We do have an educational dividend, which we should build upon. We do send and make the best of managers abroad. It's time that those who were staying back in India excelled an equal amount and made a part of a bigger economy. That's where consumption levels will change. Taxation has to change, stamp duty for that matter. I think Mr. Hiranandani gave you the best two examples of taxation change besides GST, which has already taken place. One was stamp duty in a place like Maharashtra, always a leading thinker. They reduced the stamp duty by 50% in the month of September. From 6%, it was reduced to 3%. And I will give you the example of only one city called Pune, which was known as a hotspot for pandemic and COVID. The city of Pune, with 6% stamp duty, collected 800 crores in the month of August, when it was 6%. But in the month of September, when it was reduced to 3%, all the builders of Pune city told the buyers that please, you do not pay the 3%, we will pay the 3%. And the government collected no loss at all, 763 crores, as told by the newspapers. Now, if you see a 33 time multiplier by 3% duty, the cost and the sale value of properties registered was something like 25,000 crores. See the difference over there. The other one, which Hiranandani Sahab said, which is the burning issue right now, that if FDI is coming in into leased foreign FDI is coming into leased commercial offices, is there not a time to provide, like for sale buildings where input tax credit is given, is it not the time to introduce input tax credit to these commercially leased buildings? Because the tax trail is the one which will ensure higher GST collections. I think those are changes which are required to be tweaked, and those are pointers to the government where very soon changes can be made, like they have been made in many other sectors. I would like to finish up with the fact that yes, there are challenges, but also the opportunities. Food consumption has gone up, cloth consumption has gone up in India, and now I think the consumption of real estate must arise per capita. We must not see a repeat of mass migration because of something like COVID, which happened recently. Anyone who has a pakka roof over his head stayed back. It was those who were in unauthorized colonies, threatened by their landlords, or those who were living in slums. Those were the people who were forced. I think we need to provide housing for everyone, which is the program of the Prime Minister, that whoever has a pakka roof over their head will not leave their home. And especially for the young people, that even with the smallest house of 300 square feet, you will be surprised to know Bombay is such a fantastic city that owning 300 square feet tenement can very often make a slum dweller who gets it free of cost into a crorepati themselves. Imagine the change in the life of those people, the family, and especially the girls in those families. That the kind of financial security and emotional security that they would be getting would never be available in any slum, in any unauthorized colony. I think we are sitting at perhaps some of the most exciting times in India, and we must not let that slip. You and I, and thanks to this enriched panel and this marvelously endowed panel, we should get back to the government time and again. Influence, which is a big word when it comes to social influencing, we should now do policy influencing and bring these facts that yes, lower taxation means growth, growth, and growth. It is not higher taxation. It is not tax on the super rich, which will mean growth. It is lower taxation, which the Prime Minister announced himself before his last US trip when corporate tax was reduced on that promise of 25% ceiling, but 17% for new entrants. I think we need to give tax incentives to those who are coming from abroad now and setting up manufacturing bases here. And those are the ones, besides the Indian developers, besides the Indian industrialists, who all need new tax laws. Yes, they may be as strict as possible. There may be big data mining from GST and from the Central Board of Direct Taxes data. But yes, we also need tax breaks where lower taxation should result in much higher taxation collection. Tax collections in this country must achieve 40 lakh to 80 lakh crores as soon as possible, because tax to GDP ratio will determine so much more money for the government to invest in. Government must not cut down on its investing and must invest into infrastructure, because that is what will lead to a much higher growth in this country. Thank you so much, and thank you for allowing me time. So grateful to you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. All positive vibes coming for the industry and participants. Primarily, sir, your three views: technology, expanding the horizon, and tax reforms. All three, if bound together, will definitely take this sector forward. So just one thing for a few of our friends who joined from tier 2 cities especially. Sir, co-working and flexi working. What exactly, because the topic today is flexibility in commercial real estate. What would you guide them, just quick guidance on flexibility? What exactly is flexibility for especially tier 2 cities, and what should they look for who are into developing or who are presently doing the commercial malls or commercial establishments?
May I?
Yes, sir, you only, sir.
I think it's a very fascinating right now because it's a new thing that co-working, working from home, and the people who really have home in the hills, home in beach resorts, they are very senior people. They are today saying that because of the danger of pandemic, we are working from home, and these make very good newspaper stories. But I think for tier 2, tier 3, tier 4 cities, let's have modern offices. Let's introduce concepts like conservation of electricity and power, water recycling, new technology, IT backups, and therefore where distances are not very large to cover from residence to home, I think it still makes a difference that whether it is banking, whether it is offices, the more that people interact, and even if they do it from their own offices within the same building, it's a much greater interaction that you can conclude a contract, you can conclude a meeting, maybe while maintaining social distance and very few people meeting each other, but much faster. I think they will have a certain future. And certainly when it comes to interacting with the agricultural base of this country, where movement of food grains, movement of technology, establishment of food processing industries, I think that will make a very big difference to new kind of offices coming in, new offices of the reducing the chain between the producer and the marketer. I mean, companies, whether it is Reliance, whether it is Reliance Fresh, whether it is Flipkart and Walmart, whether it is ITC, whether it's a large number of giants who are now coming in, and they will be supplying to whom? They will be supplying to mom and pop stores. Those will come up. People will go around the corner from your street and venture out and buy. We all do that today. We all go and buy the rations. It is so easy to buy. You order by, by the WhatsApp. By the time you go there, you spend 10, 15 minutes. If there is any good left to buy which you haven't thought of, you can do that also. Last minute instructions, the wife can think of that. She can go and buy it. I think shopping itself is changing. It's not that matters will come to an end and there will be no further development. I think the biggest growth will be in not only metros, because a large amount of population will become urban, but it will also be in 1, 2, 3, 4 tier cities. So I think those modern offices, have we really seen modern offices in those kind of tier 3, tier 4 cities? They will come in. There's no way to keep them out. They will be there. Because I think the Indian youngster is so well and so well adaptable to technology that he will not like to lag behind. So I think that is something which is a great thing for India.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you so much. Friends, now we have someone. We've had a developer's perspective, the ideals of the country, speaking on the topic. Now we have someone who is working on the roots. Yes, Mr. Kunal Walia, founder and CEO of Simply Work Offices Private Limited. Kunal and his company, I believe, is handling more than 2.5 million square feet of space presently, and a man who's actually into the real estate, into the commercial real estate. So, Kunal, we welcome you. And if you can share your thoughts, what is co-working, what is flexi-working? As Mr. Talwar said, that it's a new jargon, it's something which is developing. Over to you, Kunalji. Your thoughts on the topic today.
Sure. So, I'll give you a very quick overview of the space, right? And like Mr. Talwar said, and others have also mentioned, space in terms of commercial real estate. There is co-working, which is a larger umbrella where everybody falls under. But co-working traditionally has meant over the last couple of years, a lot of shared services, right? So you have essentially a 100,000 square feet building, you've got multi-tenants sitting out of spaces, and it was pretty much pay as you go. So if you need 10 seats, you go out and occupy 10 seats, but you don't necessarily pay for a meeting room separately, right? That is a common amenity for this space. A cafeteria is a common amenity for this space. So co-working started that way. But I think what's kind of differed over the last couple of years and how we started Simply Work as well, is we went into this and said, while there is the aspect of co-working that appeals in terms of shorter rentals, the aspect that doesn't appeal to especially larger corporates is the aspect of the shared services infrastructure. A lot of our clients, in fact, I would say 96% of our clients are Fortune 500 firms, right? These guys are very, very particular in terms of the EHS norms that have to be followed, that their employees do not interact with anybody else. There is no shared IT infrastructure, data protection. A lot of those things are a common element which they want to keep secularly within their own control or within their own zones. So we started Simply Work with that idea that, look, we will provide flexibility in terms of leasing. We will provide customization. We will do build to suit, whether it's specs, whether it's brands, whether it's design, EHS norms. We will comply everything to a grade A development, what any company would do for themselves. The difference is they are looking at short-term occupancy. They are looking at 3-year, 4-year lock-ins, essentially because while these guys, all of these IT services companies have grown really, really aggressively, there is always a point where there is a bridge point where they are right now, let's say about 500 people, they're adding another 500 headcount. It's not large enough to go and ask for a build to suit campus. It's not large enough for them to go out and build their own space, but they would want to do that, and they see the headcount increasing to that effect that they would want a solution which is more medium term. So what we talk about as enterprise flex managed spaces is where SimplyWork fits in quite well. Like I said, we cater to larger enterprise clients. As the pandemic has hit, obviously, one of the big shocks that came into the system, and we all talk about long tail risks in real estate. I think real estate, like everybody in the panel has mentioned, is something that has attracted probably the largest amount of FDI in India over the last couple of years. It has led to probably the largest institutionalization of the space over so many years. But from developers who were build and sell, now it's completely a build to hold model. And a large part of that has to do with commercial real estate being a very predictable cash flow model. I think the long tail risk of the pandemic has put a very big spotlight on that, which is this as reliable a cash flow stream as we thought it to be? The answer, I think Mr. Talwar very rightly mentioned is, and Dr. Hinudani mentioned, the fact that a lot of the conversations today are with large institutional investors saying, can we invest, can we co-develop with you guys? A lot of that is coming in because the answer coming back from a lot of these institutions is, in spite of this long tail risk, like Mr. Talwar mentioned, 97% of the large occupiers have held on to their office space. So while there is, some bit of flexibility that's come in, some challenges that have come in, I think India, on an overall basis, the office commercial spaces have done the navigation reasonably well within this period. A large part of that credit goes to some of the larger developers in the country. They have institutionalization to that extent that they've been great enough. They have been very, very, very conscious of the fact that there are challenges. Every client is facing a different challenge. You've had hospitality sector hit really bad. You've got airlines hit really bad. Travel overall has been hit really bad. So very selective renegotiations, temporary release have been given to help the clients kind of tide over this space. So there is clearly that benefit which has helped us navigate the pandemic to a certain extent. Coming to where we are now, I think what we are seeing in terms of flexible space is an increased demand. We are seeing more and more Fortune 500 clients recognizing the fact that flex spaces need to be about 15% of their overall RE strategy. So if they are talking about 1 million square feet in India, about 150,000 square feet definitely needs to be with flex spaces. And the reason for that is they don't want to keep the entire balance sheet risk on themselves, right? They don't know whether there is going to be another work from home, which happens, let's say, a year down the line, or another lockdown that happens a year down the line. So they do definitely want what is called term risk to be managed better. So a lot of flex spaces are seeing increasing demand because of that. The second aspect is a lot of clients, and this goes back to the whole cost optimization angle, is a lot of clients are saying, look, we don't necessarily need 1,000 seats, right? We can very easily have 30% of our workforce work from home permanently. So we want to shrink our office footprint. We want to bring down the SG&A to a certain extent. Now, the smarter guys understand that you are not going to reduce your SG&A by 30%. What they are saying and what they are swapping for is intelligent office design, where they're saying, give us more social spaces. The meeting room spaces, ideally before the pandemic, even with some of the larger clients, used to be 1:12. For every 12 workstations, you give us 1 meeting room seat. Today, that number is 1:6, because people are realizing, and large organizations are realizing, that while people may take time to come back to work, and you may never see 100% back to work over the next couple of years, you will definitely have a requirement of people coming back to offices to collaborate. Sit in the same room, larger meeting room areas, conclude large transactions, high value contracts, work together. And those spaces are definitely more and more in demand. We were, over the last 2 days, I'm in Hyderabad, we traveled down from Bangalore with, again, a Fortune 500 client who's looking to set up a second city office here in Hyderabad. And over the last 2 days, I think the one common element that we kept hearing from them is a lot more social spaces. The amenity requirements have changed, right? They are not necessarily all that focused on parking spaces that they used to be, because they realize that the footprint is going to be less, or the headcounts are going to be less that come into the office spaces. But the ask is for a lot more open spaces from the developer. The ask is when they're selecting their campus, does it cater to a open food court as opposed to a closed food court? Technology obviously becomes a big part of this as well, right? I mean, a lot of aspects in terms of HVAC filters catering to UV60 requirements, etc. I think that's going to be the standard practice. pretty much every office that we've built, and we are live with about over 2 million square feet, is something where we are very conscious of the fact that this has to be a touch-free entrance, touch-free egress. All your washroom points have to be touch-free. A lot of that is going to be just life as normal going forward. So you are seeing a cost optimization angle happening from a lot of these aspects as well, right? The whole CapEx cycle turning negative, which is, I don't think pretty much anybody, even the large firms today, really have CapEx approval coming in that easily. So, which is where the flexible work opportunity really comes in for us. We are happy to do this office space design, your requirements to your specs. We are happy to kind of put in the CapEx ourselves. We are happy to give you more flexible leasing. We are happy to give you a national footprint. So if you're looking at Delhi today and you say, hey, you know what, Delhi suddenly is no longer all that attractive. We have offices in Hyderabad, we have offices in Pune, we have offices in Bangalore. And, hopefully that aspect is becoming a key choice as well. So most large organizations are coming to that realization that the significant change in how they look at office space is definitely going to happen. It's cost optimization, not just in square footage, but overall in terms of productively, how do we kind of enhance this? So like somebody else very perfectly captured, I think the densities have started moving the other way. There was a period of time over the last 2-3 years where, Indian offices, the back offices started with about 120 square feet a person, went down to as low as 65, 70 in certain cases. They are back to 120, 130 square feet as an ask today. So clearly, you are seeing more absorption. Yes, you do have a challenge of times. And that's where I think the right thing to do is manage the time horizon risk really better. So where you're working with the developer to say, hey, while I know you might be looking to take the office building live this quarter, let's maybe push it out a quarter. Because that's what we are seeing with most of our clients as well. They are looking at flexibility of coming back to work. They are looking at arrangements with operators, with developers who are more cooperative, who are more, let's say, conducive to having a dialogue around these things. And that's going to be the differentiator about how the world kind of comes out of it as well.
Thanks, Kunal.
Sure.
A lot in a very short span. You've covered the entire country. You've covered all aspects, co-working and everything. Thank you so much. Friends, we had Mr. Hiranandani and Mr. Talwar talking on the importance of AI and the importance of technology in the real estate sector, especially the commercial side. With us now, we have Mr. Amit Lal. He's head workplace strategy and solutions practice, corporate services Sodexo. So Amit, if you can just share that how the technology as such can help in cost optimization and again, flexibility in commercial real estate. Over to you, Amit.
Thank you, Himanshu. Good evening to everyone. So I think some of the words that have been resonating through this discussion with what Niranjan ji said and Rajiv ji and Kunal and you yourself said, flexibility. Pradeep ji spoke about the opportunity in this adversity. We're talking about cost optimization, which is pretty much the theme. Moving beyond the metros, etc. So I think it's a big disruption that we all are facing as an industry. While I'm working, I'm trying to bring in a slightly different perspective and bake in technology with the human experience element of the commercial real estate, because I think these are really challenging times where companies are trying to build the trust back in employees, win their confidence to get them back to work gradually. So as I work with a lot of large clients on that front, I see them phasing out their back to work strategy, enabling that with technology, topping it up, ensuring that the whole employee experience is safe, secure, healthy, and most importantly, it all goes in vain if the trust and the confidence is not instilled in the end user, right? So it's a disruptive time, and it is a big opportunity for us to look at the whole end-to-end value chain beyond construction, design, architecture, the transaction side, and going through the life cycle of the property, and especially in the new normal, whatever it is going to be, whether how many people work from home, how many come back, Some industry reports are now saying that about 25% people will work from home globally. Rest 75% will come back, maybe on a rotational basis. I think it all is going to be defined. Is going to be unique for each company, each industry, maybe differ certain to some extent region by region globally. But one thing is for sure that technology is coming out to be the biggest disruptor. It has been already for almost every other industry. They have reached a level of maturity. However, and of course, that is also evident from one of the recent studies by PwC, where they're saying that the study is called the 21st Century CEO Survey, and 60%, 64% of the CEOs who were surveyed, they're saying technology is going to disrupt their business and how they do their business over the next 5 years. So, and I think while I was talking to Ravi, I mean, that was my intention, that I agreed that I will try to reflect how the next 5 to 7 years can pan out. What are the technologies and corresponding technological use cases that are the future for the industry? However, it is to be noted, that real estate as a sector is laggard in adopting innovations and technology, especially digital technologies, right? And this goes true for even Silicon Valley, where from an office technology point of view, they have matured to some extent in the last 10 years. And that happens to be the the hub of all the technological innovations globally, right? And I think why I am kind of opening this, giving this narrative, this note, is to identify this opportunity and explore a bit more as we go forward. There are certain gaps that we as an industry need to mend and to reach there, both on the people side, process side, as well as the whole digital maturity side. I would refer to another research by Morgan Stanley. Now this is their Morgan Stanley Digitization Index, and apparently they rate real estate as the second least digitized industry globally. And I think one of the reasons primarily is that we have a lavish amount of data in the industry, whether at a construction level, transaction level, business intelligence level, from a risk standpoint, etc., or even from a workplace standpoint on a day-to-day when the property is operational, right? But that data seems to be a bit unstructured, and it remains in silos. So I think that's where and any technology is really as good as the data that it is based on, the structure of the data that it is based on. So I think I really want to start on that. But I think one thing is very clear: while we maybe have been a laggard, we maybe have been slow, or whatever reason is there, this outbreak has really given us the traction on accelerating the adoption of these technologies. So what I've really done is I've put some visuals together, just to let the audience think, because I really want to leave them with food for thought, do some design thinking at their end when you are conceptualizing your properties, your strategies for the new normal, because as we speak, clients or the occupiers and the end users are really, and their CXOs are really recalibrating their portfolio strategies, which will directly have an impact for the business you are into, right? So I think I've been given the presenter right. Maybe I'll just want to share a couple of slides just to leave some food for thought for the participants. Himanshu, can you confirm if my desktop is visible?
It's coming. I'll confirm you once it's there. It's saying starting to share content.
So in the meanwhile, I think I would want to continue. I think what we really want to emphasize here is that we have been we have matured the process side of the whole construction, conceptualization to construction and transaction side, but in the new normal, behaviors are changing drastically. And I was reading a report by McKinsey and Accenture, which really talks about how companies are investing in understanding the employee behavior to really optimize and personalize the experience they have within the facility. And especially with the new normal, where industry level bodies are also globally talking about a distributed workplace. Now, the workplace is no more within the office premises, right? While a large part of that would remain. So therefore, your clients would still want the extended workplace to be connected with the physical workplace. And that is only possible through technology. And I think we are blessed to exist in a world where these models are already there. While in my next slide, I say, I have put, but I will say it right now, that these technologies are the future. but the future is right here before us, and how we leverage it, how creative we get with these technologies in perspective to our own business, which is commercial real estate, how we connect the various elements which are probably operating in silos, and leverage that big data that we create out of the whole process, create the whole workflow seamless, whether for a construction project manager, whether for a transaction manager, whether for a facility manager, the occupier, their employees, all of them are seamlessly connected. So these are some of the trends. If you can see my slide, Himanshu, can you confirm? Is it visible?
It's visible.
Okay, so yeah, I think these are some of the trends before I jump onto the technology. But my whole narrative here is that we need to keep the end-to-end process with a human-centric design in mind, or rather human experience-centric design in mind, because all of these technologies are, even at a personal level, on a day-to-day basis, while we are awake, while we are sleeping, they are somewhere or the other, they're working for us, right? So the workplace of the future is what our product is. The workplace is what our product is. Now it will have an extended definition, maybe to a tier 2, tier 3 city, to a flex office, or maybe even work from home in some way. I don't know how those are going to pan out. I think it is all evolving at the moment. But one thing we know, that it's going to be connective. It needs to be adaptive to the changing needs of the business, changing need of the human beings who are occupying those buildings, and it needs to learn from those changes in the behavior and the observation it has basis the technology we deploy. Digital transformation, there are certain essential technologies. So PwC has analyzed about 250 technologies that exist as of today, which are working in various domains, in various forms and formats. And they've come up with something called the Essential 8 technologies. And these are some of the names we most often hear in our discussions on technology on various forums. Maybe that's what I'm also going to talk about. This includes big data, IoT, robotics, AI, 3D printing, and maybe a few others as well. Like Rajiv ji spoke about, IoT playing a big role, and we will see, I think we've all been seeing the application of IoT in one way or the other. We've been talking to some, I'm sure all of you would have been talking to some of the other provider with some innovative use case. I think we still have a long way to go to fully leverage and adopt these technologies to mature the landscape of digital for commercial real estate, because still a lot of these technologies are existing at a use case level in isolation. So we still don't have, even at a global level. I was reading a study or an article by this publication called CRE Tech in the US. Their CEO says that we still in the US don't have a integrated platform that connects the entire value chain of commercial real estate. And that's where you start. Once you do that, we start creating big data, and that's where you start creating those deep insights that can help us optimize our processes, our workflows, while at the same time optimizing the pricing, the minimizing or really controlling the risk levels, as well as maximizing the end user experience, whether at a buying stage or at a operational stage. Coming to cognitive era, so I think it's all these systems are getting more and more cognitive. They are tracking our behaviors through the variables. It's getting predictive, and therefore it is predictive, it is adaptive also, because it is machine learning is playing a role there to understand our behaviors. New business models, I think I would not delve deeper into it from a commercial real estate standpoint. It is evolving. All of you have spoken about that perspective, and that is definitely going to show up in the next year or so as to what it pans out to be at a market level. So, but we really need to be mindful now. This is the opportunity for us to go to our blackboard or whiteboard and do those design thinking exercises as to how we can integrate these technologies, how we can make our service offering more seamless, because a large company, as per me, would have 20% or 10% of the people, for example, the random number, but a certain number of people operating from a tier 2 city now, and they would not mind doing that. They will find a flexi space. So there exists an opportunity for somebody like Kunal to maybe set up something in a tier 2 city, but at the same time, they would want to give them same level of wellness and security protocols and wellness standards which they are experiencing in their own office. So while they want to ensure there is a business continuity, there's a health and safety which is taken care at the same level of standards that they're following, whether it is a A grade building or a B grade or a C grade building, but they would probably prefer to have that same level. And at the same time, all the info security aspects of the business are also safeguarded while people are working remotely. So I think on the third front, companies have reached to a good extent, but how that really integrates with the new model and how commercial plays a role is probably what we need to deliberate as an industry together. Connected living, we all are connected. Wearables I've already spoken about. Occupant experience, I think this is the ultimate outcome. One of our partner firms in France conducted a study about 2 years back and asked people, why do you go to office? And they say for social interaction, right? Work can happen from anywhere. The work can be done in various kinds. It is siloed, it is collaborative, and maybe whatever. So I think whatever the varieties of how you can perform your work. But I think when people look forward to go to office, it's mainly for social interaction. And I think Kunal spoke about it, that or maybe Himanshuji also mentioned that someday we will really get back to work, and that's where experience counts the most, and that too we should call it the human experience and the well-being, how personalized we can make their experiences. So I call it choreographing your own experience. So we should how we can do that is purely through technology, how we really seamlessly weave everything together, all the isolated elements together. And today also that is possible. And just move quickly to show some use cases of what is prevalent in the industry. However, a few things are in isolation here, but 5 top technologies that I think are the future, and the future is here, includes the big data. We can look at real-time price analytics, property risk assessments, predicting price fluctuations and taking decisions accordingly. So I think big data is all about insights-driven decision-making, some use cases of how commercial real estate is already leveraging. And if you want to start focusing on that, on deploying some of these technologies and strategies, you can do that. Virtual reality, contactless, going everybody everywhere. And today, if we want to sell property, maybe we want to show our properties to a client sitting somewhere else in the world through a virtual property tour, prototyping and design, real estate marketing as well. So you want to showcase your properties to a larger audience through, holograms and those kind of things. All that is possible. Staff and partner training, which probably used to be in a training room, but probably now can be done remotely. They can be given virtual tours and walkthroughs of the facilities. Internet of Things, I think, is the most important, interesting application, especially when we are going contactless. Sensors are going to play a big role, not just for the technical side, which is predictive maintenance or smart metering, energy operations. IoT-based BMS are going to play a big role to optimize the building performance, and therefore, again, optimizing the cost, therefore, ensuring your assets are tracked well and maintained well. But these will also play a big role in ensuring wellness within the premises, ensuring social distancing, ensuring hygiene and sanitization levels. Finally, not finally, but I think secondly, we have artificial intelligence. So we talk about smart adaptive business buildings, and all of these technologies somewhere going to merge with an artificial intelligence framework. So nothing of these things is going to work in isolation. Eventually, the eventual culmination of all of these technologies working together would be through an artificial intelligence platform, which will make the building smart and adaptive to the needs of the end users. Therefore, machine learning will play a role there. There will be recommendation engines, not just for property search, but for various other applications within the scope of the commercial real estate operations. Chatbots can be deployed to make it more interactive 24/7. All of these solutions are available, like I said, and it's just that how we, using design thinking, the concepts of service design, we want to bake into our commercial real estate operations. Blockchain, I think it is already in place for safer digital transaction, tokenizing of the assets, trading those assets, as well as ensuring the financial safety of the records. This is a bit on the technology side, but being a workplace strategist, I want to just give a quick verbatim on the new normal, how we should look at that as we move forward. I think these are very objective things when you talk about cost, cost optimization, and deploying technology, maintaining assets, facilities, creating buildings, transactions, etc. But I think what is really important, and that's the node where I started, is the confidence and trust that we need to still instill in the people. And I think it's already widely known that people cost is the largest, followed by the real estate cost for an organization. So the perspective here is not from a cost point of view really, but 80% weightage if we can really give to the people side of it in our thought process, really ensuring that how we can support our clients to communicate better and reinforce the messages, be a part of their journey to get their people back to work. Of course, again, leveraging technology, ensuring our facilities are safe, compliant, there's good air quality, fresh air, direct sunlight, etc. available. But people side is where we really need to put our thought, ponder upon, and make that into our whole CRE design as well as the operations design, and all of that should be packaged seamlessly into technology. And I call it the autonomous workplace. So these are the autonomous buildings that we need to create, that ensure the health and well-being of the people, effectiveness of the business, as well as of the buildings, productivity of the people, again, that they do optimally what they're supposed to do to maximize and achieve the objectives of their organizations. And these places are collaborative, so there is team engagement happening as well. So by design, they need to happen in that manner. So I did mention that it should allow the end user to intuitively choreograph their own experience, which is safe, healthy, and on demand. So packaging all of these technologies together is very, very important and instrumental for the real estate participants in the industry. So I think with that I would end my note, and over to you, Himanshu.
Thank you, Amitji. Really, you've at one place opened the Pandora's box, and on the other side, you've covered the technology at large. Friends, we've had note on the actual working. We've had people speaking on the technology. Now, there's always a legal side to every issue, and we have a seasoned senior advocate, Dr. Arun Mohanji, with us. Dr. Mohan, do you think there is a need for a tailored legal framework across this commercial reality, or is there something which can save us on costs? And, again, how can we promote this flexibility looking into this legal framework? Sir, you are on mute.
Good afternoon, everybody. It was a pleasure and a learning hearing the speakers right from the beginning till this point. It really has been a learning. However, this confirms the view which I carry, that the benefit of all this can be achieved, actually be achieved, only if there's a tailored legal framework for it. Now let's look at it. We begin with the end user, and we have heard some wonderful ideas, very nice ideas of how to give what the end user wants and thus make it a profitable venture for all the persons involved in the chain, the builder, the investor, and others. But what does the end user look for? He looks for plain human behavioral economics. He looks for the best product that he can use at the least cost, because his productivity determines what he is willing to pay. So all the intelligent designs, flexible designs for him are his benefit. But what he makes subsequently from that is what determines what he pays. And what he pays sets in a kind of a virtuous cycle where the feedbacks operate and his cost is determined by the supply chain. And the supply chain, if at every step there is a 1% or 2% of avoidable expense, it totals up when it reaches him. And then it suddenly becomes not viable for him to pay that kind of rents or user fee. Friends, the problem which has been in our country is we have been missing out on tailored laws and rules for the subject. We have delays in courts. We have justice which is too long delayed. Now, what is the result? All participants then in the supply chain restrict themselves to the trusted partners. Now, the trusted partners sets in a kind of two difficulties. One, a monopoly of complacence, and secondly, the absence of flexibility for the end user then makes him feel much more risk worried. He is not risk averse in that sense of that term, but the circumstances make him so. The result is fewer end users willing to pay less because they factor in the risk, higher cost over the supply line. Why? Because of absence of tailored laws and rules. Friends, I prepared a small one-sheet presentation, which I will now place. Am I audible now? Everybody, am I audible?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You are audible.
Now, this is a small illustrative diagram I prepared. Last is the end user at number 4. We have to see his needs. The way to his needs, how to achieve his needs, have been brilliantly set out by the speakers below. And I will restrict myself, as I write here, whether he uses himself or on rent or on any of the many special and innovative tailored to the user licenses. Now, that is done. But if his cost, which he has to pay to the previous person, whether his landlord, whether his seller, is high. And why it is high? Because certain risk factors earlier in the chain have to be added to it. The result is it becomes not so viable for him. Let me take an illustration here. If one day he suddenly wants to leave, again, dispute. We don't want dispute. If he wants to leave, all right, leave. We'll do something else. But then the loss of this landlord or the licensor is also to be taken into consideration. It is not just one. I start with the beginning. Land title certification as title insurance. If this could be achieved by a request of SOCHAM to the government, then it would save so much more, which ultimately goes as the end user cost. Then there are the banks and finance, then there is stamp duty on which and taxation on which we had Dr. Hiranandani give us some good insight, followed by another good insight by the later speakers, particularly Shri Rajiv Talwar. Then the encouragement of REITs is essential. There's also need to be the CPG-Co, a concept I have been arguing for quite some time, but we need to now make that available. And then there is that troublesome rent control, which creates a fear of sorts in everybody giving it to the end user. Will he tomorrow go to the rent control court? Will I be able to evict him if he doesn't pay me rent? So the user market gets restricted, the seller market gets restricted, all because of absence of laws, rules, and dispute resolution systems that are tailored to the needs of the user, I would say, in the pre-COVID times and much more so in the post-COVID times. So with this, I would only make appeal that we have to now also, alongside the brilliant ideas which the many speakers have put forward, also request the government to enable and provide systems that are tailored to the what we are building for the use of the end user. So with these words, I would thank the organizers to give me the opportunity and express my view on the importance of the need.
Thank you, Dr. Mohan. Thank you so much. From a lawyer's mind, from a lawyer's mouth, it's always good to know the nitty-gritties and, you know, the specific points which need to be catered. Thank you so much. Friends, now we have with us Mr. Ravi Ahuja, who's the co-chair of the Real Estate Council of SOCHM and who's the commercial head L&T Realty. Welcome, Mr. Ahuja.
Thank you, Himanshu. Am I audible?
Yes, very well.
I regret the inconvenience for coming a little late on the set panel. And good afternoon, everybody. While I may have not had the opportunity to hear it from the beginning, but some of the panelists very fondly quoted Mr. Talwar, of course, Niranjan Bhai, who's the face of our industry, and Kunal and Amit, I heard personally. Thank you, Dr. Arun, as well. Very quickly, just to orient and set the tone on the commercial real estate, while everybody's done their bit of talking, if I'm just allowed to take a little high view and give a perspective for a while on the sector before I dwell upon some of the other aspects, I'll be grateful. Clearly, this sector is witnessing stress like others, and we can easily compare, quantify the kind of stress in terms of numbers. We all know in 2019, and these are published numbers, the kind of net absorption the top 8 to 9 cities witnessed in commercial real estate was close to 47 million square feet. And the projected net absorption for 2020 calendar year is roughly around 24 million square feet. So that is a huge 45% kind of fall we may see and witness. The numbers, of course, are numbers, but these kind of events is not the first time that India, or rather the globe, is witnessing. We also saw a similar downfall during the global financial crisis, from 42 million down to 23 million square feet year on year for 2 consecutive years between 2008 and 2009. Of course, the recovery took about 2 to 3 years' time. I am foreseeing a vacancy level across these 8-9 cities to also spiral up towards 18 to 20%. Whether it is temporary or in the medium term, one will have to wait and watch, because we don't know how long this health crisis will last. Having said all of this, the theme of the said session we are attending today is really to crystal ball gaze and discuss the future direction of commercial real estate. And future direction, in my view, can only come once we understand clearly what the end user is eventually going to face. What is the end user going to face in terms of workspace challenges? What are they going to face in terms of cost challenges? And most importantly, the healthcare challenges. From that perspective, And while some of bits may have been covered, but if I'm allowed to structure the discussion on future direction, clearly there are 3 or 4 areas that I may want to categorize my thoughts. I heard everybody talk about technology. Mr. Talwar spent time on AI. Amit also spent good time on it, and therefore I don't want to really dwell deep into it. But clearly, that will be the way forward, because what this uncertain time has done is really pave the way for technology and digitization, as you may want to call it, for the end user and for the very many stakeholders, be it the developer and be it the investors. In fact, it has not only been restricted to these 3, but the government is also playing an important role as a stakeholder and is gearing up with technology, be it with title records and so on and so forth. We are seeing in the marketing and sales domain clearly the future direction, wherein while the corporates may be working from home and there may be some requirements that they want to assess, whether they want to contract, whether they want to relocate to save cost. Really, what we are witnessing back as a developer for our projects is the availability of convenience of virtual tours, AR, VR walkthroughs that help our customers understand the project from their places of convenience and not necessarily spend huge money to travel from wherever they are. Maybe sometimes overseas, we saw a lot of decision makers in case of multinationals who used to travel from US or Europe or Singapore and Hong Kong to visit and take tours of property. There again, we're seeing an element of cost saving. There's lots spoken about flexibility, and Kunal, of course, covered huge amounts of it on the co-working and the managed office side. Flexibility to us may be witnessed by the end user, wherein each of our end users who we speak to, be it our existing tenant relationships or be it new prospective customers we are discussing with today, majority of them seem to be at an assessment mode. Most of them are having a wait strategy, and the assessment clearly will determine as to what way or direction they want to take. But the current situation at hand is very clear. Majority of the office space absorption really happens in the ITES domain, where 75 to 80% of the absorption happens with these corporates, be it multinationals or Indians. Many of them today have announced work from home policies. What that has done, and the other day, my colleague visited a very large campus in Bangalore, more than 5-6 million square feet, already built out. And it was a sight, because at any given normal hour of working hour, one would see thousands of employees either loitering around, collaborating, spending social interaction time. But at this time, in the peak, we only saw about 300 to 500 of them in such a large campus. That only goes to show that work from home is in thick, at least as of now. And corporates for the last 6 months have been paying rent for their properties, with one of the largest operators, Embassy, going public that they've been able to collect 98.5% of their rentals, only suggests that while these offices are lying vacant, corporates are paying these kind of costs to sustain operations. It is only a matter of time that corporates will therefore come back to the same landlord sooner than later and ask for flexibility. And that's really the third point I would like to bring up. what in the mind of the customer, and we're talking about customer centricity, because if we do not take care of the customer now, who's a tenant for landlords or developers, I'm sure this goes a long way. When things normalize, they will ensure that they support the same landlord or developer. So corporates are looking to cut rental costs, many of them looking to give up spaces. There is going to be surrendering of spaces. And many of these decisions, which were earlier taken by the CRE heads, who we call corporate real estate heads, and even the managing director or a committee of senior management. Today, the leader of the pack is none other than our very CFO. The chief financial officer seems to be driving these decisions, albeit keeping business needs secondary in mind, because today it is up to the CFO to at least ensure survival more than continuity. When things go normal, you can only continue business if you survive this difficult time. And CFOs, it's important for all of us to understand how they think, because they think very differently from what business thinks. Of course, you need to connect the dots and they will eventually come together for a sustained future. That's where the future direction is going. Another area of future direction that comes to my mind is really the nature of holding or ownership of commercial real estate. Just the other day, not more than a week ago, we heard almost $2 billion of investment, which was made to buy assets in Bangalore by one of the world's most renowned fund management organization. That's a huge commitment and just one transaction. We heard in Bangalore another transaction of a similar size, where we heard another major office developer selling its old portfolio and generating the kind of cash flows. It only suggests the amount of stress that the commercial real estate developers, who are leaders in the pack, are facing. With the projected cash flows and the COVID risk looming, they are better off de-stressing themselves, repaying this kind of debt which they have taken on their heads and responsibility, and they will be left with good liquid cash that they can further invest by doing some future direction and creating future assets at the right time when things normalize. However, this development where landlords and private equity funds will be the biggest landlords, and they easily, some of them currently own and leased assets much more than the top Indian developers, will actually rule the roost. And how flexible they are with their tenants is something we're waiting to watch. The investor, be it private equity funds or even the retail investor, the future direction of commercial real estate, because it has always given the kind of returns which have been very stable, annualized return, and therefore now, with the advent of 2 successful REIT listings on the stock exchange, and one very upcoming one, hopefully we heard in the press of Brookfield, who would like to go and be the number 3 of the REIT lister. These will provide very, very useful opportunities for retailers who till now did not have the avenue to invest in commercial real estate. It does 2 things, of course, gives them stable annuity income and then participation in future capital appreciation. Just like any other mutual fund in the equity market would, we are glad to see this asset class take great shape with Raheja's and Embassy, Blackstone already, which have hit the stock exchange very successfully. So friends, these are kind of future direction. And just a bit on the last conclusive, I'd like to see if we can relate to a case study which takes my mind to a US corporation called Yahoo. Yahoo years ago had 100% work from home policy. What Yahoo did was, of course, give great flexibility to its people. They wanted to retain talent, and they gave them 100% flexibility. After a number of years, when Yahoo realized that the initial years were great, they did wonderful business. Productivity levels were also much higher. Having said that, there came a plateau and then a steady decline. And Yahoo realized through certain research that they must call back employees for top 2 or 3 reasons. One, any organization over a medium term needs collaborative effort, and the collaborative effort is really an outcome and a byproduct of participation and social interaction of employees and of workforce who come into office and interact. This is also having a direct impact on future innovation for their products and services. And third is the experience which the employee would want when he's working at a corporation or at an organization, that he wants to go there and learn new things by interacting. So the social aspect will certainly ensure that when things normalize, the office market will come back. Now, whether it comes back from 24 million square feet of calendar year 2020 net absorption to back to 47 or 50 million square feet, I'm certain it will. However, whether it takes 2 or 3 years like it did in the global financial crisis, or less or more, is something which today I'm unable to accurately crystal ball glaze and discuss. However, we are certain that with the passage of time, things will go well. And let's not forget the health aspect, which is creating a lot of changes in design and in operations of developers who are creating these office buildings. That will be something to look out for the employees. So these are the 4 or 5 things that I feel in the future direction of commercial real estate one can look out for. Thank you for the opportunity. Thanks, Himanshu. Over to you.
Thank you. Thank you, Raviji. Very categorically, you've analyzed the future of the sector and you have set the theme, making this webinar really fruitful. Friends, before we end, if we take the crux of all these speakers, the costs like fixed cost, variable cost, they all need to be managed with technology and reforms. We also need to have flexi workspaces so that they are quickly occupied. Change in horizon would definitely develop the sector. So friends, where real estate remains a sea of change and an ocean of opportunities, with this thought, thank you so much everyone for being patient listeners, participating in this webinar. Thank you, Pradeep ji. Thanks to Hiranandani ji, Mr. Rajiv Talwar ji, Amit Lal ji, Ravi Ahuja ji, Kunal Walia ji, Anup Negi ji, Dr. Arun Mohan, and the entire team of SHM, especially DS Rajora ji, Kaushal ji, Ankit ji, and everyone. Thank you so much for participating in today's webinar. All the participants, those who have any queries from all the panelists may send an email to SHM, and the respective panelist would be keen to respond back. Thank you so much, everyone. Wish you a very good evening. Thank you.